Welcome back to the discussion on Brewster's Millions, in particular, the significance. So, Brewster's Millions may not have been a popular movie back in the 80s. However, the question that actually asked this $1 million dare, and well, even more to it, the $30 million dare. In today's money, it would be $90 million. So, could you spend $90 million in 30 days with nothing to show for it? That is a very, very interesting question, and there's significance to it. The significance really comes from what the question or what the challenge is actually asking you to do. It's asking you to spend $90 million with nothing to show for it. Now, this is completely contradictory to building any type of wealth. It completely goes against the 5 things that every wealthy person knows because it doesn't include them at all. So if you have that type of money, you just have to spend it. You just have to spend it. This isn't even like a distribution. It's not estate planning when you pass away. You literally just have to spend it. So you're essentially creating a transfer of wealth. So that's actually something really important to start with. When you create a transfer of wealth, you actually are taking that money and you are distributing it out into society. But you have to do it under a certain set of guidelines. You can't just give it away and you can't gamble it away. You actually have to transfer it for goods and services. So you actually have to buy something, but you can't have anything to show for it. So doing that in and of itself may not seem like a big deal, but how you actually go about it could actually answer some very, very interesting questions. Now, the first thing to actually think about is the whole idea of spending $90 million. It's not really a logical decision as much as it is a psychological decision. And the reason is anytime you buy or spend, those are psychological decisions. So people don't actually pay for products or services, they pay for the promise of a result. So anytime you actually buy something, you're not actually buying whatever it is that you think you're actually getting. You're buying that with the promise that it will give you the results that you're actually expecting. So that is something that is psychological in nature. In other words, it's based on whatever promise, whatever you are looking into is actually going to create for you. So when you're looking at that, everyone's going to do this contest a little bit differently. And depending on how they do it, it'll tell you a lot about that individual. It'll tell you a lot about how they think, what they care about, what they believe is actually important. So literally even just going through this, there's going to be certain things that certain folks want to do, maybe that they're restricted, but everyone's going to have a very specific pattern, and that pattern is actually going to tell you about them. Now, the contest has a number of restrictions, and the restrictions actually make everything a little bit more interesting because most people that, let's say, come into wealth that don't essentially have it beforehand, so if they come into a lot of money, usually that money doesn't last very long. And it's this based on this idea of experience. Like, if you have a garden and it has fresh soil and you plant a seed and all the right conditions are actually there, whatever you actually are growing within that garden is going to flourish, right? But if you just have barren land, there's like barely any water, odds are something's got to be really hard to survive in that environment, or most likely it's going to die. So the same thing actually runs true if you kind of give, you put something out there in the wild that doesn't necessarily have the right conditions. You're not necessarily going to get the results that you're actually looking for. So with all the restrictions, you essentially are introducing someone into an environment where they may feel comfortable, may not feel comfortable, but whatever it is, they have to work within the restrictions. And that is really a question of if they're able to spend that $90 million in 30 days and they receive, let's say, that $900 million as a gift, right, not the gift, as the goal, as a reward for spending the 90 million. The question is, will that actually happen again? Because they've essentially had to follow a particular pattern, and that pattern dictates, okay, they can spend all this money with nothing to show for it in 30 days. Could they do the same thing for the 90 million? The whole idea is yes. So will history repeat itself is really the big question. And is giving someone this particular type of contest irresponsible? So that's also something to actually think about. And just very, very, very telling. Now, I plan on actually going through this exercise and identifying a number of things that you could actually do, but wow, I'm looking forward to see what my own answers are. as far as how to actually go through this, because I'm always working to create good with my time as well as my money. So in doing that, am I restricted from actually being able to create that? And I don't believe so. But there's a number of different things you could do. I believe the most important part of this whole endeavor, this whole journey, is actually the planning piece. And you can learn so much from the planning of this type of event as far as how would you actually spend your money. Now, why? The reason that that's so important is, let's take a little bit look back as to how this contest has actually evolved. So, I believe this movie essentially came out probably in the early 1900s. And this it might have been the 1920s, I think it was the first kind of iteration of Brewster's Millions. And you had to look at how money was actually spent then. And if you go 100 years into the future, which is where we are now, 2022, how money is actually spent now, there's a dramatic difference. You can spend money so much faster now than you could back then. And that really says a lot, because if you can spend money faster, the ability to spend a large amount of money, well, you can spend it faster. And not only can you spend it faster, you have a global market these days. You didn't necessarily have a global market to actually work with back in, let's say, the 1920s. You also have the internet, which means whatever systems or plans you actually put in place, those can run 24/7 continuously. And you don't have to worry about this whole idea of, oh, well, our business is open during the week, and actually being able to reach out and conduct business. That's really the big piece there. So if money is actually being able to be spent at a much faster rate, it should actually be easier now to spend that type of money than it was 100 years ago, or even, let's say, 40 years ago. So taking all that into bearing, you actually can just look on the internet to figure out how you would even spend the money. I remember I just looked up the 15 most expensive experiences money can actually buy, and I ran across three that they could take a big chunk out of that 90 million. The first was luxurious glamping and hella hiking, where you actually take a helicopter ride. You have a fancy camp with elite amenities, stargazing, a private chef, kind of all those things, right? Stuff that you probably haven't even imagined before, right? Or how about staying in a space hotel? I think the cost on that was $9.5 million for a 12-night stay. Now that puts a little bit of chunk in the 90 million, maybe not the full bite, but that's a good enough chunk. Or maybe how about a dining experience for $2 million, where you go to a restaurant called C'est La Vie, which is on the rooftop in Marina Bay, Singapore. And you start off with a 45 mil helicopter ride. It takes you to a restaurant, serves you an 18-course meal, and you ride there in a Rolls Royce. And at the end, they provide you diamond chopsticks to eat, and also provide you with a 2-carat diamond ring. Of course, the biggest thing is you can't have any proof. So most likely you would have to rent those instead of actually buying them. But again, just coming up with all the ideas of what you can actually do. Oh man, I'm looking actually forward to putting all that together. But taking everything into bearing, if you can figure out where and how you would actually spend that type of money in 30 days, that really opens up a lot of opportunities for you. Because if everything is based on experiences, right? It's based on experiences. If you can dictate how you would actually spend that money, you may also lay down a path for how you would actually create that money just the same way. So if there was some ultra luxurious experience that you would just be dying going, that maybe no one's even ever heard of yet, but you can actually figure out what it is, what's stopping you from creating that? The whole idea with this whole contest is you actually have to dream big. You have to dream big just to be able to spend that type of money, right? So if you can dream big in spending that type of money, you're also dreaming big in how to create that type of money. So that's the significance of this type of contest. And just running through the exercise, there's so many learning lessons just waiting for you, that to not do it is denying yourself from the very, very big dreams, I'm sure, that are, floating around in there that you never really sure might be possible. But you got to start writing it down. And this whole exercise is meant to plan how would you actually spend $90 million in 30 days. So I hope you're going to join me on this journey. I hope you're going to participate just the same. And I'm interested in seeing what are you actually going to come up with on your list. And once you do, well, what are you going to pursue after that? So I appreciate you tuning in and checking out why Brewster's Millions in this contest is significant. I believe the learning lessons from just running through the exercise, regardless of actually having the money, is something that will propel you forward. So can't wait for the next part of this exercise. Appreciate you tuning in for this one. And well, we'll see what comes. We'll see what my mind comes up with, and we'll see what your mind comes up with. All right. So until the next piece, bye.